Okay, guys, there's some ideas for question 1.3. 1.3, which is, and just bear with me for a moment. Describe the relationship between the British and Māori people prior to the Treaty of Waitangi being signed. First idea there, which is really obvious, is that New Zealand was a Māori world. In fact, New Zealand was a world made up of different iwi and hapu. Was that Aotearoa was a patchwork of these different iwi and hapu throughout the land. Um, and Pākehā, and then the British Pākehā traders and missionaries and whalers were allowed to stay here by tangata whenua, by Māori, because they saw benefit in their interactions with these groups. Yeah, and there were some issues. There were deaths on both sides very early on, but it was a Māori world, and Māori were here because Pākehā allowed them to, and that was the I guess that was one nature of the relationship between Māori and Pākehā before 1840. Very much a Māori world. Māori outnumbered Pākehā. There would have been, I think, at least 100,000, if not more, Māori. In fact, there were more than 100,000 Māori still by 1840 in New Zealand. And yet by 1840, you'd be less than lucky to have 2,000 permanent Europeans living in New Zealand at that time. Okay, that was about to change because through actions of the New Zealand Company, which was an outfit set up in Britain to bring British immigrants into New Zealand. That began from about 1839 to 1840. And those first settlements were set up in Christchurch, Wellington, Nelson, and some of those older towns that are still with us today. But yeah, before 1840, it was very much a Māori world, and Māori controlled the nature of those interactions. So that's what you really need to take note of. Now, the next part of that question deals with, I guess, the nature of the relationship. Yeah, the other, I get trade. There were benefits. Okay, benefits to be had by both sides. Māori saw benefits in that relationship. They wanted trade. They wanted to get new ideas. They wanted to access new technologies that would make life a lot easier. Muskets, obviously, was the one we've talked about previously. A particular group, iwi and hapu, were seeking to establish themselves and to defend their whenua. And if they didn't have muskets, they needed to get them because their enemies would get them eventually as well. And trade also brought Māori out into the wider world. It was through trade that Māori were able to travel and see what was happening in Australia, and even travel as far afield as Britain. Now, Māori were the British expectations were, well, they wanted by the 1830s, by the mid 1830s, they were looking to establish total control over land in New Zealand. They were looking to address, and by doing that, they'd be able to address some of the land purchases that were going on that were seen to be a bit dodgy. These were Pākehā attempting to rip off Māori by claiming to have bought large tracts of land. It was also keeping the French out because there was a threat that the French would come to New Zealand and set up a colony. So Britain wanted to get in first. Okay, so by setting up a treaty, they would get first dibs on setting up a colony in New Zealand before anyone else, and that's a really important point. Then law and order. So again, by the mid 1830s, in places particularly around Kororareka, Russell, and the Bay of Islands, there was a lot of, well, British law didn't really apply. There was a lot of things happening, a lot of drunkenness, a lot of drunken disorderly behaviour, and Māori wanted to see that stop, and they looked to support from Britain, through the British representatives that were here at the time, and the missionaries also wanted to see that lawlessness end, so they put pressure. There was pressure being put on the British government through by missionaries to protect Māori from what they saw as being the negatives of civilization, of alcohol and lawless behaviour. So there was a protection as well as a particularly important point. And If you look in the booklet, you'll see there's lots of stuff that I've annotated around what Māori wanted for the treaty, well, by having a treaty, and what the Europeans were after, why they wanted a treaty. So you have a look. There's annotations to support you. Throw your ideas down, because if you haven't quite got it right, I'll be able to give you some feedback. Okay, thank you.